Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, May 12th, 2026 annual meeting of the Council of the Town of LaSalle. My name is Deputy Mayor Mike Agpat, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Before I begin our land acknowledgement, we acknowledge the ground on which we live as the traditional territory of the Caldwell First Nations of the Three Fires Confederacy and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations, who are the stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced its stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge the contributions of all other nearby First Nation communities and all other original peoples across Turtle Island. Please take time for a moment of silent reflection, followed by the playing of the national anthem. Please rise if you're able for the playing of the national anthem. My council colleagues, before us, we have the agenda for the May 12th, 2026 regular council meeting, that it should be adopted as presented. Looking for movers. Moved by Councillor Ricci Spagnolo, seconded by Councillor Burns. Are there any objections? Seeing none, that is passed. Disclosures of pecuniary interest. To my council colleagues, if there's any pecuniary interest on the agenda, please feel free to declare them now. However, should the discussion go to some place that you do find yourself in conflict, please feel free to let me know and I'll acknowledge your pecuniary interest. Adoption of the minutes. Before you are the minutes of the public planning meeting and the regular council meeting held April 28th. Be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Segan, support by Councillor Reno. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Mayor's comments. The mayor is connecting with her family, and therefore I've got the chair. There are the comments. We're very happy to be here, and again, like I said, I just simply want to thank Mayor Meloche for giving me the opportunity to chair the meeting, and hopefully she and her family are connecting and spending some time together. Well earned. Item F, public meetings or hearings. We have none. Presentations and delegations. We have none. H, we're going to move to staff reports and correspondence for council action. Number one, the 2025 financial reports for Q4. Mr. Dale Langlois, the Director of Finance, will present this report. Mr. Langlois, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. So normally this report, the other quarters are presented as part of the consent agenda, but just as part of our audit, they just require an endorsement. Attached are the financial statements, the final statements for the unaudited statements for the fourth quarter with the variance from actual, the reserve accounts and the capital accounts. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Looking to my council colleagues, are there any questions for Mr. Langlois? Mr. Reno.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick comment. Please extend thanks to Chantel and the rest of the team for the report. I found it a very easy read, and I found the explanations for overages and shortages to be quite reasonable. And given all the stuff that goes on in the year and all the things that could go right or wrong, I think your budget was very close, and and the results were there. So thank you for the report, and it's a good report card moving forward.
Looking to the rest of my council colleagues, any other comments? Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Mike. When I look under the road budget directed through you to Mr. Langlois, it says here that programs and cutting grass and all that, but what struck me was in the last line have historically been underfunded and are subject to an increased service and cost pressures. Can you please explain that? Why we would be underfunding roads, or not that it's over budget, but I guess I'd be looking for a reason why we would be doing that historically instead of bringing the budget up to what we need to do to provide the services. And you can direct that question to whoever you may. Thank you.
Absolutely. So annually, we do, in fact, increase the roads budget to try and catch up from the year before. But there are certain areas, and a lot of it's weather dependent. Big example is tree trimming. This year we were significantly over budget. We've been having some pretty significant storms, and when trees are knocked over on roads or on town property, we have to go and take them down, and that cost has been significantly higher the last few years, as well as the roadside spraying and whatnot for weeds and everything. So every year we do increase it for inflation, but we also try to increase it beyond that because we have been tracking over budget the past number of years, and we have had some significant increases in the 2026 budget. So fingers crossed, hopefully there's not a lot of significant weather events and we can stay within budget this year.
Thank you very much. And I have another one as well. It has to do with the landing and the new fire hall, where we have additional custodian services required for the event center and the fire station. I thought we had budgeted for those, and again, maybe an explanation would certainly help my frame of mind. Thank you.
Yep, that's correct. We have budgeted, and typically what we do, we've built, like for example, for the event center, we built that up within the waterfront reserve, and then we do a reallocation. We've also done that as well with the new fire substation. So we built that up in our fire master plan, the operating costs and whatnot. And then when we open it, we reallocate that funding. So sometimes it's like the first year, it's kind of a best guess based on the number of hours we think. Sometimes it can be a little bit more, sometimes it can be a little bit less.
Thank you. I guess just to follow up, we'll know better for next year's budget if we're all elected. We'll know better because we've had more of a longer period of time to judge those expenses. Thank you.
Mr. Segan.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question has to do with the line items dealing with police, and I'd like to refer this through you to Mr. Langlois. My understanding is in December, we were told that there would be a surplus early part of December. And then when we look at where we are at the end of the quarter, we have a deficit of 370,000 approximately, which really is a swing. If you look at the original information, about 1.5%, that's about $500,000. So my question to you is, like, this is basically a structural deficit. It's not cyclical deficit. I mean, if cyclical, at times get better, we have more funding. But with structural, we can't really continue on. And I know that the ratepayers of LaSalle, by and large, support our police force. So what is the plan? What are we going to do to address this issue? Because my understanding also is that this has been happening for a number of years where we have a negative balance.
Yep, I'll answer that question in two parts. So the first, the original projected surplus at the end of December, there was projecting a surplus. What happened at the end of the year? So we're in process of contract negotiations right now, collective agreement negotiations. So at the end of the year, it's ongoing as we speak. The contract expired at the end of 2024. So what we did was we have to best guess a percentage increase in the wage rates and the results of the negotiations. So we accrued for that at the end of the year. So at the beginning or end of November, when the projections were made, that wasn't taken into account. At the end of the year when that accrual was made, just so you know, when the contract's finalized and there's a retroactive payments for the increase, it doesn't all hit us in 2026. It's appropriately based on the number of hours worked, allocated to 2025 hours worked. The increase is going to go to that year's financial statements, and then correspondingly for 2026, the increase will be in 2026 financial statements.
Okay, thank you, because it's incumbent upon us to have a plan.
Yeah.
And then, you know, in the very near future. I have a second question, if I may. Under transit, if I'm reading this correctly, did we kick in $576,284? And is that gas tax? Like, where is that funding coming from in order to offset the cost of transportation?
So included in the transit services, there's the handy transit service as well as the municipal transit service as well. So approximately $385,000 of revenue included in there is funded from the gas tax. That's annual allocation. It's based 70% on population and 30% on ridership. $100,000 was taken out of our transit reserve, and that was built up a number of years ago. And that payment is for the annual lease for the actual buses. And then the difference is paid for through the tax, the municipal levy. Included in there is also handy transit. So handy transit was significantly higher this year, and as council may recall, there was a retroactive payment. So it came to our attention that based on the rising costs and changes in ridership, we weren't covering our portion of the costs for handy transit. So there was a retroactive payment. I received the audited financial statements, and I did bring a report back to council for that, which was ultimately funded from our accessibility reserve.
Okay, I do remember that. I had another question. Under Parks Operations, we were under, we spent 93.2% of the envelope there. Couldn't we do more then with parks? Because one of the things I heard a lot about was some of our parks that need refurbishing, updates and so forth. Unless that's an area where you're moving maybe funds we didn't spend there into other areas where there was other priorities or surprises. Can you comment on that?
Yep, I can comment on that. So our part, the main area where we are under budget is purchase of fertilizer and seed for all the fields, specifically the soccer and baseball fields at the Vollmer. Mr. Bryden does a great job monitoring his budget, and he strategically purchases a lot of his purchases at the end of the season when prices are significantly lower. That's benefited us for a number of years. But however, if we were to reallocate that funding, it's kind of after the summer season's over that we know that we're going to have a surplus, because that's when we usually purchase the product. But it is important to know that for the 2026 budget, this is an area where we did reduce. When we were looking at areas to find savings, this is typically an area where, it has been lower than budget because Mr. Bryden's strategy on when he purchases. So like for 2026, that gap is going to be significantly smaller. It'll probably will come in really close to budget, because this is one of the areas we found to cut.
All right, because when you look at the survey of residents, refurbishing and updating the parks was one of the priorities. So that's one thing I would suggest that we consider when we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Segan. Looking to my council colleagues, are there any other questions for Mr. Langlois? Seeing none, there's a recommendation before council that the report of the Supervisor of Financial Planning dated April 23rd, 2026, FIN 2026-09, regarding the 2025 financial results Q4 be received, and that council approve and adopt the capital funds analysis, reserves, and reserve fund schedule, deferred reserve schedule, deferred revenue schedule, and cash and investments report for the year ending December 31st, 2025. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Riccio Spagnolo, support by Councillor Burns. All in favor? That passes. Is there anyone opposed, I should say, excuse me? That does pass. Item 2, Front Road Pump Stations Contract Award. Mr. Michael Capucci, the Manager of Engineering, will present this report. Mr. Capucci, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Mayor and Deputy Mayor and council members, the report here is to approve the contract award to Amoco Infrastructures for the $15.5 million price for the 2 pump stations. There's a lot happening in this report, and there's obviously that one line probably a little worrisome to some of the council members. So we'll talk about the whole report as a whole. We'll talk about the project first, the overall project along Front Road. Then we'll talk about this one specifically, the pump stations, and then we'll talk about the finances at the end. As everyone here knows, there has been some flooding issues in the past along Front Road. And since that time, the town has looked at solutions through an EA process to fix those issues along Front Road. And we broke that up into 3 stages, stage 1, stage 2, and the final one, stage 3, is going this year for completion and adoption. The first 2 stages, as we all know, and you can see it, the stage 1 in particular is the work going along Front Road, the sewer project right now. And there were a few other pieces to that puzzle that was completed before that stage, but right now we have Front Road under construction for the sewers, and those sewers lead us into the 2 new pump stations that we're proposing here today. The 2 pump stations went out for tender, and we got a very competitive bid from Amoco Design, who's done this type of work and can handle this type of project. And so the town is recommending that we proceed with awarding the contract to Amoco for the 2 pump stations. The last thing we want to talk about is the financial impacts. So like I said, Front Road, this has had a history of flooding down there. And at the time we applied for a $37 million, the project overall was for $37 million, and we received the DMAP grant for 40% of those costs. So in my report, under the financial implications, we list out all the projects that have gone along the Front Road area. And the total sum of those projects equates to about $37 million. Now that we know the exact cost of the pump stations at $15.5 million, the town is requesting that the project, which had $26 million approved, get moved up to the $37 million budget allocation so that we can enter into the contract and have sufficient funds available to pay for the costs. Finance was able to find a way to pay for those costs that had a net 0 impact to the town's annual operating budget. So they can speak to that more if you had any questions about the financial impacts. And I am available for any further questions if there is any regarding this project.
Thank you, Mr. Capucci. Looking at my council colleagues for questions, I recognize you, Councillor Carrick.
Through you to finance, and so the report's excellent. The numbers look big but doable, and I like the idea of us being able to offset the budget for next year with the funds. I guess the question is, if we take that money and put it toward there, how much down the road are we pushing some other projects, if that makes sense to you?
Through your worship. So there was a report when we applied for the grant brought to council in 2019. Actually, we've been working, we got approval quite some time ago. It's a big, huge project, so it takes a number of years to complete. But the plan was to fund, in addition to the grant that we received, to fund the remaining balance through debt issuance. And what we've done over a number of years as part of our asset management plan, we've been building up the funding, the annual allocation to roads, storm sewer, all the different reserves that we have. So we have spent some time, like a number of years building up our storm sewer reserve. That balance, the annual contribution right now is $2.3 million. So part of the strategy, we always like to build up the funding before we have to pay for it, right? So we built that reserve up to $2.3 million. And as part of that report in 2019, the difference from what we received from the grant was going to be funded through debt. So the plan was to decrease that annual contribution to the reserve by the amount of the annual debt payment to have a net zero impact on the operating budget. So that's how we plan for it, and everything's gone according to plan. So we have more than enough money put in there. Our reserves at a healthy balance of 18.5 million for storm sewers. That sounds like a big number, but there is a heck of a lot of projects around town over time where the existing storm sewers are going to need to be replaced. So we're going to continue over the years to hopefully build up that annual contribution. But we are in a healthy spot right now. And by issuing debt, that allows us not to use the money from the reserve so that we can do more projects.
Okay, so thank you. So that's healthy. I just have one further follow-up question, and thank you for that. So the canal behind the event center, is this part of this stage to get, I guess, fixed up to more of a pond or a retention for water overflow at this time?
That's not part of this pump station work. That is part of stage one of the overall DMAF project. But this contract today is just for the 2 pump stations, one at Riem and the other one at Adams Lane. That's the outlets for the storm sewers. The retention pond is in the design process right now, right behind the event center. That will be coming. We'll be coming with another report when that's ready to go.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was supposed to be part of the other process, but obviously I was mistaken. Thank you.
Councillor Burns, the floor is yours.
Through you, to Dale or Mike, who wants a response. Seeing as we got a grant for X number of dollars, I think the amount at that time was probably would have covered all costs. Is there a supplementary grant that we can go back that here's the actual price? So they would increase it. So if it's 40 million and we get 40%, that would be more than what we get that we receive from them. Is there any supplementary due to inflation or whatever? Has that ever been tried? Is that allowed? Is that a good path to maybe get 3 or 4 more million from the province? I guess is my question. Thank you.
So I can answer, and if you have anything to add, Mr. Capucci, feel free, or Mr. Osborne. When it comes to grants, often you're not allowed to stack grants. That's a requirement. So I'm not sure with this one if you're allowed to stack it or not. But on a positive note, the original $37 million, even with inflation, there has, obviously from before we had the design actually completed, there's been some efficiencies and some cost savings. So we actually are still on track, pretty on target for the $37 million. So luckily, this is a project where inflation hasn't hit us because there's been some changes.
Thanks for the answer.
Mr. CAO, I recognize you, sir.
Just further to your question directly, this program came out of the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, which is a federal program, and they have been quite strict in terms of any cost escalations are the responsibility of the municipality. They have funded a certain amount, and so at this point in time, there's no additional funding on that side. But they've been very adamant that any additional funds would have to come from the municipality.
Councillor Segan, you recognize. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was really glad to see that on the bottom of the page 3 of 4 of this report that you are even mentioning the operating costs, because the impact of legacy or operating costs are critical for us to know where we're moving in the future. So I would suggest that in the future, and I know it's been happening in the past, but I see it more so now, that we get as much detail as possible as far as projected costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking at my council colleagues, any other questions for these gentlemen? I do have one. Very simple. Will this exacerbate the timelines for Front Road completion in any way, shape, or form?
No, they're two separate ones. Front Road is on schedule, knock on wood. It's been going pretty good, and we're looking at an early July completion date for all the project. Everything south of Laurier should be done in the next 3 weeks, so the timelines are looking pretty sharp for that. Yep.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for any of these gentlemen? Seeing none, there's a recommendation before you that the report of the Manager of Engineering dated April 13th, 2026, Report PW 2026-20 regarding the Front Road Pump Stations contract be received, and that the Front Road Pump Stations contract be awarded for the bid price of $15,507,648 plus HST to Amoco Design Build Incorporated, to be funded from Capital Project 24601 Front Road Storm Water Improvement Stage 1, and that council approves an additional 10.5 million as part of the 2026 budget, and that the council authorize administration to explore financing options for the town's share of the Front Road Storm Improvements Project. Looking for a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Carrick, support by Councillor Reno. We'll vote now. All in favor? Opposed, if anybody? That carries. Item 3, LaSalle Pickleball Association exclusive use of courts at Front Road. We have a delegate, Mr. Simon Jacques, appearing in person. We'll wait. If he was the gentleman in the hat, I did see him go out. He might have just had to go to the washroom or something, so we'll just wait for him because he was here. In order to facilitate the meeting, I've been given direction by the clerk. Ms. Finero, the Director of Culture and Recreation, will present her report in alignment with the LaSalle Pickleball Association. Ms. Finero, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening, Deputy Mayor Akpata and members of council. The report before you this evening is about managing access and scheduling of the Front Road Pickleball Courts for the 2026 outdoor season. It's building on the 2025 pilot project that tested limited exclusive use for the LaSalle Pickleball Association. At that time, we advised council that we would come back to them before any future use. So that's what we're doing tonight. The goal of that pilot project in 2025 was to find a balance between organized programming and public access. And that was successful. And so this evening, we're just looking to continue with the exclusive use of 3 of the 6 courts for the LaSalle Pickleball Association. That would only be during scheduled permitted times, and the courts would remain open to the public at all other times. We're proposing that we once again charge the 2026 capital reinvestment fee with no additional rental or program fee. This is in keeping with what we established in 2025. And it does reflect the conditions of the courts, which were repurposed from tennis courts and painted to be available for pickleball. I also just want to note that in 2025, we entered into this agreement as a partner with LaSalle Pickleball Association, and they continue to be a partner with us by providing a variety of programming, working with our seniors active living programs. And they have also hosted charity tournaments in which the benefactors are local LaSalle charities. I do also want to note that this is not in relation to the pickleball courts that are currently under construction at the Vollmer Center, and that we would bring forward a new agreement and fee structure once those courts are open. We do have plans to meet with the LaSalle Pickleball Association later this week to begin those discussions. But overall, the rental of the courts and providing the exclusive use at certain days and times on Front Road really is helping us to maintain a balance. It's supporting organized play with leagues and skill development, but it's also protecting access for casual and drop-in users as well. And that concludes my report. I'm available should you have any questions.
Thank you. Looking to my council colleagues if there's any questions for Ms. Finero on her report. Councillor Reno.
I just wanted to make a comment. I have been contacted by the LaSalle Pickleball Association, who are unable to make it tonight, but wanted to share with the group that they have read your entire report. They understand and they agree with it, and they wanted to thank you for the report and send the regrets for the meeting tonight.
The gentleman who left is back. I assume, are you Mr. Jocks? Mr. Jocks, please come forward and you'll be given 5 minutes to speak as a delegate. Please hit the button in front of you, and when you're ready, sir, the time will begin.
Ready. So, my name is Simon, and I'm a resident taxpayer of LaSalle. In 2025, the council ran the LaSalle Pickleball Association, LPA for short, the exclusive use of the court at the LaSalle Landing, charging a capital reinvestment fee of $5.90 per hour. To put this in perspective, in the private market, the rate for a court rental at the Pickleplex is $188 per hour for 3 courts. By charging $5.90 an hour, the town of LaSalle is providing this exclusive access at 97% below the market value. As a resident taxpayer, I submit that this arrangement is overwhelmingly unfavorable to the LaSalle tax base and below the replacement costs. I repeat, market value $180 an hour, and the town rate is $5.90. So my question for the council will be, does the council plan to bridge, how does the council plan to bridge this annual loss, call it a loss? Do we plan to replicate the same arrangement with the LPA at the new $2.8 million Valmere Court? And my formal submission for this council today is that we increase the current LPA rate from $5.90 an hour to closer to the market value. I assess that the fair value is at least $40 an hour per court times 3 courts, equal $120 an hour. The lease will still be at a discount for the Pickleball Association versus the market rate. And the city will start to get adequately compensated for the court, for the 1, 2, 3 court operation and equipment at the LaSalle Landing. So let's sign this deal for the betterment of the LaSalle taxpayer. Thank you very much. Respectfully, Simon John.
Thank you very much, sir. I understand you have a document. Would you like to bring it forward so it could be entered into the record, sir?
Yes, I do.
If you'd bring it forward, sir, it'll be attached to the record.
To you?
To the clerk, sir. Council, we've had the presentation. Are there any questions for Ms. Finero? Councilor Riccio Spagnuolo.
Thank you to Ms. Finaro. Will the dates or the days and the times be communicated to other pickleball users, and how will that be communicated? Will there be a sign on the courts, or will this also be on social media? If you could just answer that, please. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yes, there will be a sign posted. That's what we did in 2025 when we found that worked to communicate to the other users.
Councilor Carrick, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Ms. Finero. So I guess the question is, we're getting services in kind as well from the South Pickleball Association to help with the seniors in teaching. So that and other charitable, I think, events that are happening. And they came before council and said that they will be helping us as we move along too, for perhaps fundraising and other options. So I guess it's unfortunate that I don't think you heard that that's not going to affect the rates in the new courts. So hopefully at the proper time and maybe at budget time, this would be a good option to look at for different things down the road. Because just opening it up now would put us in a spot where if we think minor hockey is not paying the same amount per hour, then we'd have to open that up and look at charge them another $100 an hour. So just keep this in perspective. So I think at this point, the seniors or the pickleball associations putting in a lot of extra time to help with teach our seniors to and do clinics and whatever else, which is at no charge to the town and a benefit for seniors in our community. And I think as we move forward and we get ready to open the new courts, then adjustments can be made. To what effect, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm sure it won't stay the same. So thank you, if that works.
Mr. Burns, the floor is yours, sir.
We don't charge obviously for tennis courts.
That's correct.
Thank you for that answer. $1,200 doesn't seem like a lot of money. Maybe we should be charging more, but again, as my colleague has stated, that for the new courts, there'll be a new agreement. This is something that the pickleballers came up with, they offered us, and we accepted it, basically. And I concur with that. Again, you know, I look at the Volmer, and again, if you were to look at the number of hours that when I was going there, I don't pay $5 an hour. So these things are for seniors. These are for anybody that wants to be active in our community. And in these days and age, with what's going on with some people not being able to afford recreation at all, I think the minimal fee that they're paying now is sufficient. We've agreed to it in the budget, and we're just formalizing it here. So I have no issues with the amount that we're charging at this time, and I would move the recommendation that we move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Councillor Reno, the floor is yours, sir.
Just, I just wanted to mention, when the proposal came to us, we, and this is somewhat in relation to the delegate, who unfortunately is left, but just for those watching, I mean, we entered an agreement. We spent very little to paint some lines on some old tennis courts that were being underutilized. And I can honestly say, I travel the Front Road corridor quite a bit, and over last summer, last fall, last spring, those courts were always being used. And the fact that they could have something there that they could advance their sport, that they could have a couple courts open, that they could advance their sport, they could do clinics, they could do teaching, and grow their sport to something that's worthy of a $2.5 million complex over at the Volmer really is quite remarkable. And the thought of getting them now under the ActiveNet and getting them as part of a user group as opposed to just a specialty project on the side or a test is a testament to their resiliency and to our agreement. And I wanted to thank them for, I did notice the new tournament that's coming up and how it's benefiting the community and some of our favored charities. So I agree with my council colleagues that we've already made an agreement that there's really no reason to increase this from what we're doing already, and that the agreement worked very, very well. And I think we need to continue what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reno. Any other comments from the floor from my council colleagues? Seeing none, there's a recommendation before, and I understand, Mr. Burns, that you've moved it. There's a recommendation before that the report of the Director of Culture and Recreation dated April 23rd, 2026, CR 2026-09, regarding LaSalle Pickleball Association's exclusive use of pickleball courts at Front Road be received, and that the LaSalle Pickleball Association be granted the exclusive use of 3 of the 6 pickleball courts at Front Road at mutually agreeable dates and times during the 2026 outdoor court season, while the courts are otherwise open to the public. And further, that the LaSalle Pickleball Association be charged with the approved 2026 hourly capital reinvestment fee only, with no additional rental or program fees applied, consistent with the established practice used in 2025. And further, that administration be authorized to manage this exclusive use through the town's approved facilities permitting and rental system. It's been moved by Councillor Burns, seeking a seconder, seconded by Councillor Reno. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Moving to the consent agenda, looking to my council colleagues, are there any items of the 9 proposed that anybody wants to move and speak to? Seeing none, we're looking to pass the entire consent agenda before us, looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Segan, support by Councillor Burns. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Summary of reports. That items 1 through 10 on the consent agenda be received. Which we just did. Thank you. It appears twice. Committee matters. Accessibility Committee minutes from February 18th be received. Moved by Councillor Reno, support by Counselor Riccio Spagnolo. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Questions and statements by council members. Counselor Carrick, then Counselor Burns.
Thank you. So I guess this is a question for maybe the clerk's office or somebody else. So I just got an email saying July 1st, 2026, initial implementation of Bill 97, fast approaching municipalities. So with the FOI, and there's other various things attached to this bill. So are we getting enough heads up of what's going on? Is there going to be drastic changes that we're seeing or hearing anything at this present time? Because we always have to deal with FOIs and things changing. And I'll leave it at that without getting too deep.
So yes, we are getting all kinds of correspondence from different avenues, AMCTO, AMO, law offices. We're getting all kinds of information. The amendments that are affecting FOI processing particularly begin in July 1st. And that is, there's three things. And one is changing from the 30-day response time to 45 business days, which gives the clerk's office much more time to respond to a request. My apologies. Yeah, we just wrote a report on that. The other one is that we have a personal information bank requirement now that we have been working on. And the other one is that we can now have like a staged response. So for instance, if we have a large request, we, instead of trying to capture all that information within a certain timeline, if that is not conducive to operations in our department, then we can do a staged response.
One follow-up. So I guess, would there be, or is it being looked at, an option to recover the costs of going through this process for information that's needed that?
Yeah, unfortunately, no. The legislation that is changing does not speak to any of the financials or the fees that are collected that are set by the province.
Thank you for the answers.
Counselor Burns, sir.
Yes, first, good news. My green bin, they destroyed it, for the waste. I was surprised. They came out to the house and they actually replaced the wheel right there on the spot. So anybody that is using the green bin, call the 1-800 number. And they will either replace it or fix it right there. So they just required us to put it at the road Monday, and I don't know what day they came by, but they were very efficient with that. So that's a heads up. And to Parks and Recs, I had a request for a flag, town flag. So maybe, Ms. Patty, you could take that in there. I will pay for it from a resident, and then they'll reimburse me. I know what the process is, so I
Usually that comes through the CO's office.
okay, well, then I'll deal with you after that, Joe. And they, thank you very much. The other one is, I got a request on McNabb for traffic calming on that street. And I would just like to ask administration what the process is so that I don't lead them down the wrong path. Who do I see? Do they have to get a petition? What goes on with that? Please and thank you.
We have an online form that they'd fill out, so just, they would go online and let us know what street segment that they'd like to traffic calm. And they would fill it out, we would review it and go through, there's an internal process, we would go through and investigate the street and what the needs are, and we would put out some tubes as well. So if they follow up online, we'll be able to help them out, no problem with that.
Just a follow-up, please. Could you email me that, please?
Not a problem.
Thank you very
Yep.
much.
Counselor Segan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been getting requests about tree planting, particularly in areas where trees have been removed or there's been some work done on some of the limbs and so forth that are interfering with some of the structures. What is the process for that? And if if somebody can help me with that so that I can refer back to the residents that have been asking me that question.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, there's, I guess, kind of two parts to the process. If there was an existing street tree in the right of way in front of someone's house, say, and that had to be removed or died, we would make every effort we could to replace that street tree in that general area. Sometimes though with, underground utilities or maybe other potential conflicts, we're not able to get a street tree in, and it is unfortunate, but we do strive. We hope to get a street tree there. And then there's kind of another scenario where there is maybe no street tree. And we do have set aside a number, I can't remember the specific number, but we kind of allocate or earmark a certain number of trees per year that we could go add street trees to areas that might not have street trees. So that is really just someone making a request. I don't know if it's a specific form that's filled out. I don't think that it is, but it might just be one of the service requests that we have on the website. And we'll come take a look at the spot, see if it's a good spot, appropriate spot for a street tree, and then it'll get added to the list. I'm not sure where the list stands, but there could be a year where we have, 100 requests and only 40 trees, so they would get bumped to the next year or whatever it might be. Or there might be a year where we might not have many requests at all, and we're able to do it that fall.
Another question, thank you. Through you again, Your Worship, to Mr. Osborne. One of the questions I'm getting is about the encroachment of turf and grass on sidewalks, particularly in the more established parts of LaSalle. I mean, I'm aware that older sidewalks are 4 feet and the newer ones are 5, if I'm correct, as far as the width, but people are saying that when you have people moving in opposite directions, they have to step onto the grass or other areas off the sidewalk. Is there anything that can be done to do some trimming? Perhaps, I don't know if we're hiring students to do some outside work like that. Maybe that'd be a job to do in some of the areas.
We do have a few students. We weren't planning on going to do that work specifically with them. If there's a specific spot that has, that problem, we could maybe look at it. But we're not resourced to kind of go and start adding that service kind of to our portfolio of what we do, where we go and kind of edge every sidewalk. So I don't think that's something we want to look at. We don't have the resources to do at this point. If that's something council wants us to look at, we could come back with what that would maybe take. But we haven't provided that service to date, and we're not set up to do that this year. But like I said, if there's a specific spot where there's, a localized problem, we could maybe look at that. But I think kind of going down that path, so to speak, might, going with a weed whacker along every sidewalk in front of everyone's yard might bring some problems with it. Maybe some people might like it, but there might be kind of a host of other things that people might not like about it.
Thank you. And I realize that it's an onerous task, particularly the number of areas. I think most of this came from people who are elderly who are not able to do that themselves. So I appreciate the answer, and I look forward to see what comes back from me. Thank you.
Councillor Carrick, I understand you have another question.
Sorry, Your Worship, through you. To bylaw or police for this matter, in my neck of the woods in Heritage Estates, the e-bikes, scooters, I mean, we're doing 4 or 5 on the roads at a time. Young kids, I know they have licenses and they're not obeying the stop signs. They're just running up and down the streets, the sidewalks. They're running around into the shopping areas. And I've got some complaints from some of the local businesses because they're just running rampant all over the place. So are we aware of the issue? I'm pretty sure we must be. And are we doing an educational thing? Are we going to look at that? Are we approaching them? Are we trying to talk to them? Because out in front of my house alone, I see probably 2-3 times a day, 4 or 5 of them zipping by, not stopping for stop signs. And you have to have a license to ride on the road for a vehicle. And this is just like helter skelter out there. So I just wondering if we're looking into that. Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. E-bikes are not considered a motor vehicle as per the Highway Traffic Act. They ran a pilot project at Luce Track probably 15 years ago, and then the province liked it. So that while there are specific rules about e-bikes on highways or roads, they're not considered a motor vehicle as you would think like a car or a truck. So there are different rules. Now, private property is a different matter. There are no specific rules under the Highway Traffic Act to govern e-bikes in parking lots, in parks, I am aware of some complaints, and we have recently issued some education via social media. And we have been doing some enforcement and in-person education. I can't speak to that specific area, but I know certainly in some of our parks, we have been doing that.
Yeah, and like scooters too, like it's just those little things too. They're just flying around. So again, I thank you for that. And just to be aware, because it's happening quite frequently and with warm weather coming and school is going to be out, it's going to be rampant. So thank you for that.
Any other questions from my council colleagues? I have two, and again, one is for you, Chief. Got a very nice compliment on seeing auxiliary on some people's flashes. And I was asked about our auxiliary program. I don't want to misrepresent the citizen who asked, so can you speak briefly to the auxiliary program and how it's doing, sir?
Certainly, through you, Deputy Mayor. We started the auxiliary program approximately a month ago. So these are 7 citizens who are volunteers. They are not paid. We provided them training as well as uniforms and equipment. And so they will be deployed in a variety of fashions. Some of that includes special events. For example, Police Week kicked off. We had them at Devonshire Mall on Thursday last week. And we also had them assist with the Turtle Club Parade. So we'll be using them on Canada Day for the Strawberry Day, for Strawberry Festival, and certainly any other special events. They're also able to ride along with officers. They do not possess the powers of police officers. They possess the powers of citizens, just like any of the folks that are in the room. But the goal is to increase police presence at pretty much no cost, with the exception of the startup of their equipment.
Thank you, sir. My second question is to any of the members of administration. I received in my inbox from another municipality a memorial brick program to help support a project they're working on. I just wanted to know if it's something that we'd considered for some of the projects we're going on, because the citizen sent it to me and it's up here on my screen. It doesn't matter which municipality it's from. Let's just say it's from a close one. I just wanted to see if there's something that for our upcoming project that this might fit into. And if so, I'd like to be able to just forward it to the right person. So I'm just looking for a comment, please.
So is this for us to support this, or is this a program that potentially we could start up?
The resident's simply asking if it's something that we would do, consider, if they're just looking for some direction. And again, I don't want to misspeak, so that's why I'm looking for some assistance here.
So typically, if the resident's looking for us to support another initiative, we don't typically do that. We are trying to develop a sponsorship program where we would do something similar to what this organization is doing. That is been on a deferred basis right now until we get resources to help understand and properly structure the program. But we don't typically support outside of the municipality.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. Are there any other questions or statements by council members? Seeing none, are there any notices of motion? None from my colleagues. There's no report of a closed session. Bylaws. Recommendation of the following bylaws be given a first, second, and third reading and finally passed. Bylaw 2026-33, being a bylaw to adopt tax rates and to further provide for penalty and interest in default of payment thereof for the year 2026. And bylaw 2026-34, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 5570, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an encroachment agreement. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Segan, support by Councillor Carrick. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Item O, our confirmatory bylaw. The confirmatory bylaw 2026-35 be given a first, second, and third reading, finally passed. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Riccio Spagnolo, support by Councillor Burns. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Before you is a schedule of meetings, ladies and gentlemen, that comes to adjournment. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Reno and Councillor Segan. All in favor? That motion carries. To those watching, good night. Thank you for attending.
Go Habs.